Hello and welcome to this week's weekly reading vlog. This week I'm going to read a load of books about pandemics because what else should you do when you're living in a pandemic and half the world seems to not care anymore? So, as I'm in such a positive mindset, these are the 3 books I've chose. We've got Station 11, The Dreamers, The Book of M. These are all about pandemics but in their own way. The Book of M is 2 years ago when the forgetting first reached the United States. Ori and Max saw its effects. They had watched a shadowless man speaking perfect English walk straight into a fire, not remembering what it was. Heard children with no silhouettes ask flowers where the nearest water flowered, as if the flowers could understand. Why had it turned out to be that shadows were the parts of the bodies where memories were stored? Why did it happen to some and not others? Why did some people forget things after 2 weeks and some hang on much longer? And when they finally did forget, why did the earth itself seem to forget too? So that is the Book of M, and it's a pandemic but it's more about like memory and forgetting. Then we've got The Dreamers. So one night, an isolated college town in the hills of Southern California, a first year student stumbles into her room, falls asleep and doesn't wake up. She sleeps through the morning into the evening. Her roommate, May, is unable to raise her. Neither can the paramedics nor the perplexed doctors at the hospital. When a second girl falls asleep and then a third, May finds herself thrust together with an eccentric classmate as panic takes hold of the college and spreads to the town. Those affected by the illness are displaying unusual levels of brain activity, higher than has ever been recorded before. They are dreaming heightened dreams, but of what? So again, it's a virus, it's spreading, it's going, and they're falling asleep and not waking up. Then, Station 11, what was lost in the collapse? Almost everything, almost everyone, but there is still such beauty. One snowy night in Toronto, famous actor Arthur Leander dies on stage whilst performing the role of a lifetime. That same evening, a deadly virus touches down in North America. The world will never again be the same. 20 years later, Kristen, an actress in the Travelling Symphony, performs Shakespeare in the settlements that have grown up since the collapse. But then, her newly hopeful world is threatened. If civilization was lost, what would you perceive and how far would you go to protect it? That's Station 11. I do have all these books here, but I've also managed to get the audiobooks for them. Station 11 is available on BorrowBox from my library, and the other 2 books, The Dreamers and The Book of M, are available on Scribd. So I'm probably going to listen to them via the audio versions, and this week I'm planning on deep cleaning the house, so I'll listen to the audiobooks about pandemics whilst deep cleaning the house. So I read all of part 1 last night, and it was really, really good. I really enjoyed it. There were bits that I was worried about. Especially, I don't know if it continues, but in part 1 there was quite a heavy Shakespeare element. I'm pretty sure that continues all the way through. But because I'm not really very knowledgeable and I don't know a great deal about Shakespeare, except for what I learned in school over 10 years ago, I was worried that a lot of it would go over my head, but I don't think it does. Like, I think it's done very well in a way that even though I'm not really familiar with the actual subject of what they're doing, I can make sense of it and understand what's going on. So that was really good. And also part 1 was like essentially at the opening, what's going on, what's happening, and it was this epidemic starting, and we had characters, and at one point I won't spoil it by saying what was happening, but there was a set of characters talking. It's told by the narrator, so it's all from like the narrator's perspective, and after they'd finished talking it was like they're dispersed, and the narrator goes, it was something along the lines of, this person lasted the longest once the virus hit. They didn't die until 3 weeks after that day. Like, they were all dead within 3 weeks, and oh my god. And then our main character, who I don't know if he's going to be our main character throughout or if it's just for part 1, he heard the news very soon and realised how serious it was very soon because of his friend working in the hospital where it happened and his friend calling him. And obviously, like, I'm reading the audiobook, but I assume that you'd get this through physically reading as well. But like, I could feel like the anxiety and the stress and trying to figure out what to do and trying to convey this message to other people as well. Like, yeah, really, really good so far. So I don't know how far through in like pages I am, but I'm about to start track 7 of the audio and I've listened to 58 minutes and 23 seconds, so that's essentially how far through I am, but it's literally just said part 2 and that's when I turned it off last night. So yeah, really exciting, and I'm hoping to keep reading a lot today. But yeah, that's station 11. Okay, hello. Thought I'd check in. It's now Wednesday and I am today deep cleaning the bathroom, which is why I look like this. But update on the book, really enjoying it. So I'm listening to the audiobook and I've honestly just listened to the audiobook. I haven't picked it up physically at all. But I've got 4 hours and 42 minutes left of it, so I'm over halfway. I've listened to 5 hours and 28 minutes of it. So what's that, like roughly 60%, very roughly. And yeah, it's really good. I'm really enjoying it. I'm liking the perspectives and it's doing things very interestingly. So it's kind of spanning anywhere from 10-ish years before the pandemic started to 20 years after the pandemic. They call it like the 20th New Year. So yeah, it kind of spans from that, and we're seeing basically the main few characters. There's no exact main character. We've seen them in like these different times. So I'd say our main character is who we're initially introduced to as a little girl, and then we also see her much later on. And then there were characters that I didn't think we'd see any more of, like characters that died during the first few chapters, or characters that we're told were going to die in the first few chapters. But then because it also did this previous, like beforehand, like it's 10 years in the past from the start date as well, it's really good, it's really interesting, and I can't help but just keep reading. Yeah, so I've also found that, I don't know if this would happen if I was reading it physically, but at least through listening to the audiobook, it's making me like so anxious in parts. Like there'll be just like the situations that they're happening, like I'm actually like feeling like the emotions and like the anxiety of trying to go through that. So I'm finding that like really amazing. Like if it was doing that all the way through, it'd be 5 stars. Right now it's probably sitting at 4 stars. Like there's definitely, basically it's going to end up being 4 or 5 stars. I don't know which right now. Obviously I've still got 40% of it to go. Well, unless it turns out really crap. But the way things are all like interwoven together and these storylines are separate, but then little things will be picked up from here and there and you'll realise there's a link. And yeah, really good. Really enjoying it. Just wanted to basically pop in before I continued reading it for the day, because I'm listening to it as an audiobook, I'm not really talking about the books as much, I'm realising. And this entire week I'm listening to audiobooks because I'm deep cleaning all week. So yeah, really amazing, really liking it. Really glad that I didn't read this at the start of the pandemic, and kind of glad that I hadn't read it beforehand as well, because I would have been panicking. But yeah, it's really good and it's doing things really interestingly. It's interesting to see how different people in different towns and different communities have like dealt with everything, and because we've seen it like 20 years after, it's honestly crazy. So far I would say I definitely recommend, but no, I'm gonna get on with continuing reading it. Okay, so last night at like 2:30, something like that, I finished Station 11 and it was really good. It was such an amazing book. Like, honestly, like, there were so many storylines, so many things going on, and so many perspectives, but not just like perspectives of people living, perspectives of people living within a 30-year difference. And then the way at the end, like, I feel like as you read through, by the time you got to like the 50% mark, you kind of started to like draw these lines in between them, and are like, oh, like that's linking to that and that's linking to that and all this. And then by the end, the way it was just like so nicely, like, I wouldn't necessarily say there was conclusion for all the characters, but I would say there was conclusion for us as the reader, because we got all the different perspectives. And yeah, it was really good. It was obviously very weird and different, like it was dystopian, but I feel like because we live right now in a pandemic, like, you know, it is still classed as a pandemic. Seeing how life was affected then compared to now, and just seeing it all, like, I am still really glad that I didn't read it right at the very start, because I feel like I probably would have panicked and be like, well, we're going to be basically in an apocalyptic future and it doesn't matter anyway, and yeah, it wouldn't have been great. But I don't know, it was a great book. I really enjoyed it. I loved the Shakespeare element as well. I actually think I will probably pick up some Shakespeare this year, just because I wasn't very familiar with it. Like, I feel like for most of the popular stuff, I know the basics, like, you know, like the rough outline of how the story is meant to go, but I honestly haven't looked at any Shakespeare at all since probably like year 10 at school, which was like 10-11 years ago now. And even then it was only like one or two that we're looking at then. It was probably much longer since the majority of them. So yeah, really enjoyed it. Thought it was really good, and I rated it 4 stars. It didn't quite get 5 stars from me, to be honest. Like, I don't know, I feel like 5 stars is more of a feeling you get when you're reading it. And like, don't get me wrong, like parts of it I loved and parts of it definitely were giving me those feelings, but because there were so many different perspectives and it was only one perspective that I was literally like heart thumping, like feeling what's going on here, I felt like for the rest of it I couldn't give it 5 stars based on one perspective when there were like 6 perspectives, I think, throughout the entire thing. So yeah. And now I'm going to start listening to the Book of M. The reason I've decided to go for this one is it's a 17-hour audiobook. And I've read the description of the Book of M and The Dreamers again this morning, and I just think there's more chance of me enjoying the Book of M, to be honest. Like, I think I'm going to enjoy all of them, obviously. Like, I've purchased these books, I think I'm going to like them, but I don't know. Basically, when I read the descriptions this morning, the Book of M called out to me more, so that's the one I'm going to start to Again, I'm listening to it through audio. So Station 11, I managed to get the audio via my library, which uses an app called BorrowBox that just links up to the library service. And then the Book of M I've found on Scribd, which is a service that I pay for, but it's $9.99 a month for essentially unlimited books. Like, you can have it modified if you listen to loads of audiobooks a month. I think if you listen to more than like 5 or 6 a month, the more popular titles, like, you won't be able to listen to that month and stuff like that. But honestly, I don't know exactly how it works. I've never had an issue with it. There's been a few times when I wanted to listen to something and it said available on and give me a date, and I'm like, cool, I'll come back on that day and listen to it. Yeah, never had a problem with it, so I'm going to listen to the Book of M through that. So yeah. Okay, quick update. I have been reading through the audiobook today, but I've just looked through the book and found what page I'm on, and I've actually made it to page 100. I'm enjoying it, it's good. It started out honestly quite similar to the last book, but that's not surprising. It's a book about an apocalyptic world post-pandemic, so not too surprising. And we've kind of got 5, but maybe only 4 main characters. 4 main characters that I've read from, but I feel like there will be one more as well. But what is hindering my enjoyment of this is I don't like one of them, and every time we get that person's perspective, I'm like, not a fan, basically. But overall it is really good and I do understand it, but I'm just like, every decision you're making doesn't seem like a good decision, and everything you're doing to make things better for the one that you love, you're going a very stupid way about it, which is just meaning even more stupid shit. Like, honestly, like, there's one perspective I'm not enjoying it, but overall I'm enjoying the book, and I feel like I'm just getting into the part where I'm also getting, what's his name? The Amnesiac. I'm just getting his perspective and learning more about that. Like, I've seen a little bit, but we're just really getting into it now. Like, we're on a big, what looks like a big chapter from him. And yeah, really enjoying it, really having a lot of fun. I'm having a little bit of difficulty remembering their names, so I think when I next listen to the audiobook I will like skim the actual physical book whilst I do it, just because the names aren't quite sinking in for some reason, and by 100 pages in the names should have sunk in, at least for the main characters, and they haven't. So yeah, but overall really good so far, really enjoying it, really enjoying the world, and attempting to understand what the actual virus is that's going around. It's obviously people are losing their shadows, and then once they lose their shadows they lose their memories. The approach it's taken so far, but obviously I haven't had a perspective where it's been properly looked into or properly thought about yet, it's just something magical basically. It doesn't make sense, it's a curse. And I feel like for that reason, it kind of feels like a bit of like a leave your brain at home TV programme when it comes to that aspect. But that's not necessarily a bad thing, and I feel like I'm still so early on in the story that I really don't know what is happening with it yet. I'm enjoying it, I need to read some more. Little PSA. If you're in a relationship, or married to the person, in this case, where the world is essentially ending and you know something major is going on, but you're unable to talk about and discuss what you should do, get the fuck out of the relationship. These characters, I don't know if you meant to not like them or not, but bloody hell. So in the audiobook, the end of chapter 18, or in the book, page 188, one of our characters that we're following has just met someone and found out their name, and that person is the same person, presumably, that another character that we're following had already met like some time ago, and it's all coming full circle and it's good, and yeah, I'm enjoying it. Okay, so I have 4 hours and 47 minutes left of the audiobook, but I'm now up to listening at 1.8 speed. So I think I'm going to finish it this evening. It's currently 11:30, but I think a couple of hours and I can finish this book. I'm really enjoying it, but nothing's surprised me yet. And I feel like the couple of things that have happened that I feel like were kind of meant to be a bit of a twist, I'd guessed. But it's really good, and I'm enjoying the concept, and I'm enjoying learning more and more about the loss of shadows and how it relates to the memories, and how the loss of shadows and the loss of memories works. And I'm enjoying all our characters, and I'm enjoying how different characters have met up and how different ones haven't, and how they all seem to be heading to destinations that suit them and all that jazz. So yeah, I'm enjoying it. I'm going to finish it. I'm hoping for something more before the end. I feel like right now, if something big doesn't happen in the last like 100 pages I think I've got left, if something big doesn't happen, then I don't think it'll get more than 3 stars, unfortunately. But I'm hoping that something good will happen and something I either didn't see coming, or something that just makes sense and ties it all together, or just something like that will happen. But yeah, I'm going to keep reading. Okay, so last night I finished the Book of M. It was really, really good. I really enjoyed it. But I don't think I can give it more than 3.5 stars. It's either going to be 3 or 3.5. Unfortunately, nothing surprised me. I feel like all of the like twists or like things that I felt were meant to be significantly shocking by like the way they were written, I'd guessed a considerable amount of pages before that happened. I'm not talking like a couple of pages before I was like, oh, that's probably going to happen. Like, I'm talking like 50 to 100 pages before I'm like, oh, like this is going to be the case. So yeah, it was really enjoyable. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the story, and I enjoyed the figuring out exactly what was going on. But to be honest, I didn't particularly like the conclusion, and I did struggle with it quite a bit, which is a shame, because I think objectively, like without thinking about like my own like emotional and like brainy feelings towards it, objectively it is a good book. It's written really well. I really enjoyed the process of reading it. I just don't know, honestly. I just don't know. But yeah, that I guess is that. I'm thinking of starting doing like spoiler reviews for some books, like just like making a video just talking about one book and like going into spoilers and exactly what for and everything. So I just don't know, like I don't watch many of those kinds of videos, so I don't know if they'd actually be any good. So let me know if like that's something I should do, just because there's some books that I feel like I really can't talk about without spoiling stuff, and like obviously I don't want to do that just in a regular video. But yeah, I did hope to also read The Dreamers this week, but it's not going to happen. It's Sunday now. Normally I would just start the book and continue it on to the following week, but next week is Polathon, so I want to do a whole another video for next week where I hopefully, fingers crossed, complete Polathon. So yeah, for this week I managed to read Station 11 and the Book of M, and I'm really happy with that. I am going to up my Station 11 rating. I've thought about it considerably since I finished it, so I'm going to up it to 4.5 stars, because I think the fact I'm still thinking about it like 5 days later, and I don't think that's going to stop, and I actively want to recommend it to Jay. Like, I'm trying to get him to give fiction a go, and I feel like this could be the book. Yeah, I think I'm gonna up it to 4.5 stars, and I think I'm giving the Book of M 3 stars, which is still really good. Like for me, 3 stars is a good rating. It's like 2 and 1 stars that aren't really. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. So yeah, I do hope that you enjoyed the video. If you did, please do give it a like, subscribe down below for more videos like this, more bookish content and occasionally random other shit. And yeah, hopefully I'll see you next time. Bye.